Checking out my Kinedyne HM750SL, and we'll look at some of the benefits of this new style servo. So once the servo is installed and you've fine-tuned that needle position sensor the way you like it, you won't believe the way this thing sews. It's exactly like having a 4-to-1 speed reducer on your machine, and you maintain full punching power at the bottom end. Installation is simple on this one, and luckily it uses the same 3 bolt holes, so it comes with 3 carriage bolts, and we'll use those to mount the motor up to the table. By reading the instructions, you may think that you have to install this switch to the bracket on the motor, and actually what I recommend is just installing the switch separately with wood screws to the bottom of the table. That'll give you some extra flexibility in where you mount the foot pedal on your machine. So with that old servo off, these are still great for skivers or machines where you don't need that slow speed control, and we'll install the new one. Of course, the mounting holes on the bracket are slotted, but if you need a little extra reach, realize that if you loosen a couple bolts, you can actually slide the whole motor down, so it'll accommodate just about any machine. And overall, that mounting bracket is just a good bit sturdier than other models I've seen. And we'll tap those carriage bolts down into the same holes. And go ahead and align the pulley on the motor with the hand wheel of your machine. You might need to change belt lengths. Mine went from a 42 originally down to a 40-inch for the new motor. And just secure those with a standard washer, split ring washer, and nut from underneath. Your needle position sensor just sits on the hub on the side of your hand wheel there. And if you don't have that hub, the kit comes with one as well as a screw to mount that. This one's already set up to go. So another thing you need to do is find a suitable location to mount the bracket that secures that needle position sensor. Usually it's to the side of the head or to the belt guard. This one has a nice position right on the head itself, so we'll tighten that in. And next we'll need to drill a hole just for wire management. Make sure that all the wires are clear from below and that you're also not going to contact the metal leg set. I also like to think about a grommet for that hole, so I drill it in a common size. This will just be a 1 3/8 inch hole. The directions I think recommend a 40 millimeter, but 35 millimeter in my case will work fine. And the needle position sensor will just fit right over that bracket. That does a nice job of keeping that from rotating as you're sewing. And then we'll just feed that down through the hole we drilled and manage the wires away from the moving belt. And the controller just mounts in a convenient location under the table. And the rest of the process is just taking care of your wire management under the table and then quickly programming your needle position sensor. And the key point on that is to rotate the photo plate until the red mark aligns with the letter N that you see inside the device. Then you can just button things up by putting the cover back on the sensor. One of my other walk-in foot machines has a 4-to-1 box style speed reducer, and that's a pretty neat system, but there's a lot of rolling resistance. So when you turn the hand wheel, you really feel that extra weight of the flywheel and the pulleys. So with this system, there's no extra resistance. I can easily roll that by hand, but you can absolutely creep just like you did have a speed reducer. You're not going to believe it, but I have the maximum speed set at 700 RPM. And of course the speed range on this is from 50 RPM up to 3000. So even if you have it set a little bit higher like I do, if you occasionally want to be able to zip along, you can still just creep and you have really nice variable speed from the pedal. And of course it'll stop in either the needle up or the needle down position. And if you heel tap, it'll bring it right up for an easy release. Make sure to turn on the needle position sensor function, and you do that by going into parameter 26 and changing it from 0 to 1. That'll make sure that your needle position works normally. Also be aware of this button that you can swap between needle up or needle down. But for day-to-day adjustments, you're just using the speed up, speed down function, and we'll go all the way down to 50, the bottom end, and I'll show you what that looks like. You've also got a button to turn on and off your light if you have one of those plugged into the back of your motor. Okay, I'm going to punch it. That is, believe it or not, maximum speed. When I'm on 50 RPM, my foot pedal is pressed all the way to the floor. I'm not going to go any faster than that. So I don't know if you want to call this a beginner mode or if you're just doing some really intricate leather crafting and you don't want it to take off on you, you have this option. But you know, even if you're up at 700 or higher at your max, you just have incredible control with this motor. So will this new servo replace a speed reducer? Absolutely, and it has in my workroom. So if you've got a popular Juki like this 1508, maybe a FAF or a Conso 206 RB, that's another one I use is the RB5, and a motor like this will completely change the character of your walking foot. The system uses a photoelectric sensor instead of a typical Hall sensor, and that's what gives you so much better control. You can just dial it in stitch by stitch. You won't believe how close this feels to having a speed reducer. Actually, I can sew more slowly with this setup than I could with my 4-to-1 reducer, and I love that sort of control. The only thing I didn't like about that speed reducer was all that rolling resistance, and I've completely eliminated that. So this is definitely the motor I'll be going with in the future. You get 750 watts on this one, or a full horsepower. Compare that to most servos that are only 550 watts. And just heel tap and it raises the needle up. I have mine set to perfectly release the thread, so I never have to touch the hand wheel. If you're used to that function on a different digital servo, brushless servo, you still get that. So really you're not giving up anything except for you're adding all that extra torque and the slow speed control. Here's 8 layers of 3-ounce leather. Now this is chrome tanned, about 24 ounces overall. And you notice the needle doesn't stutter. This is a leather point needle, but it just glides straight down in. And that's the kind of action I see when I'm using my 4-to-1 speed reducer. Now the other digital servos I have, they really kind of stutter and hop as they enter the leather. So that tells me I'm getting a ton of torque right where I need it. Well, I guess I won't need that anymore. There's a lot of buzz around these servo motors, and I've had people ask me, hey, where can I get one? And you want to go to Neil's Saddlery and Harness. They're the nationwide dealer for Cowboy sewing machines as well as Kinedyne servos. And their phone number is 330-692-1418, or just drop down to the description box and you'll find that phone number as well as links to their website. So final analysis on the Kinedyne HM750SL. Would I recommend this motor for someone who does leatherworking or just has an upholstery class machine that really wants to slow things down compared to a typical analog servo or old-fashioned clutch motor? Yes, I absolutely and unequivocally recommend this motor. I'm in the process of switching it over on my other machines. This is the new standard. I won't be worrying about the speed reducers anymore like I always had to, because you get all the benefits with no drawbacks on this. So you might pay a few dollars more on the front end, but you'll reap the benefits every day in the workroom. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.